Okay. All right. Well, I'm very excited that we're all here. So I just put down on that first PDF all of our meeting times and dates and the Zoom link and the book. Did anyone not get a copy of the book? Okay. Aaron, we still hear that sound like a truck is going by. Can you mute? Is that okay? Thanks. Okay. So the fun part, I thought we'd just introduce ourselves, where we are teaching, and what grade level we're in, maybe why you thought this book study would be of interest to you, or what you plan on using it for. So I'm going to stop this sharing. I can start. So my name is Kate Webb, and I am an academic interventionist at Unitigo for grades K through 5. I was recommended this book by one of the PD developers at BT BOCES 2 years ago, and I loved it. It was an easy read, and I felt like it was just so pertinent to what I was doing. So we're just going to go down through. Ashley, I think you're up.
Hi, I'm Ashley. I am a third grade teacher at Unitigo. I'm currently on maternity leave. So hi, Kelly. I see her like frantically waving.
I mean, you're in the nursery, so we're expecting a cameo appearance. Please.
Well, you know, he was screaming, so he's out there with the other one. But I got an email about this from Kate, so I thought that I would probably like it if Kate recommended it. So that's kind of where I'm at with that. So nice to meet everyone.
And Susan?
Hey, hi, I'm Susan Campbell. I am an AIS teacher for elementary. This is my first year in this position. I saw the book and wanted to learn more about the science of reading, and I thought this would be a good one.
It is. It's a very good book. And Ken and Kelly?
There we go. Hi, I'm Kelly, husband Kenny. I teach third grade, and it's one of those, it's the level where reading comprehension, it starts becoming assessed by the state, and the focus is all on reading comprehension strategies. And I found it interesting. And like Ashley, Kate kind of said she was leading it, so I hadn't heard of it before. And I was just kind of interested to find out, you know, the science of what goes on in the brain to get that reading comprehension.
I teach at the high school level. However, I have a very large numbers of students that are reading currently at third and fourth grade level. And so I didn't know if this could have some, might be able to help where they're at and bring them up high.
When Kelly said to me, do you think Kenny could do it? I thought that would be great to have someone at the high school level and who sees what happens when they leave us at elementary and this, you know, the difficulties you might be seeing. So I'm very excited you're part of this. All right, and then Nicole.
Hi, I'm Nicole Gardefee. I'm a special education teacher. Sorry, at Franklin School. I have a self-contained for third grade ELA. And then I push in as consultant teacher for first, second, and third grade. I've had this book in my cart for like the last year and a half. And then when this came, I decided to jump on it.
Awesome. Well, we're glad to have you. All right, Elizabeth.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Barber-Breeze. I'm a brand new staff developer at ONC BOCES, and I've been a secondary ELA teacher. And a lot of people are looking for training in reading science. And I, as a secondary teacher, I don't know anything about it. So I'm hoping to learn more so I can help in the district.
Great, thank you. Carolyn?
Hi, I'm Carolyn Christensen. I teach first grade at Unitigo, and I really am curious about this book, especially the balanced literacy piece, not just the science of reading, but how to balance literacy into all subject areas in the classroom and increasing that reading comprehension and vocabulary piece.
That is what I loved about it. So it's so good. But Corey?
Hi, I'm Corey Redmond. So I am a 811 special ed teacher at Harold campus. So my students are 3rd and 4th. I'll be honest, I've been looking for some kind of professional development that didn't take place during the day. So this was perfect that it was during, off hours. And just like, I guess most of my professional and college was very limited in literacy. So this is like an opportunity to get some of that. Oh, I think you're muted.
Sorry. Thanks,
okay.
Corey. Mackenzie?
Hello, are you just introductions? Is that all, Kate?
Yep, where you're teaching, what you're doing.
All right, I'm Mackenzie. I'm a reading teacher over at Walton Townsend Elementary. So I work with K through 5 in small groups. And I've obviously been hearing a ton about this book the past few years. So just really excited to kind of dive in, and we're doing a lot of different and new stuff with the science of reading. So I'm excited to get into this. And I really liked the first chapter a lot. It was, like you said, Kate, really easy read, and
it makes it so nice. And Mackenzie is part of the AIS network, so she has a ton of knowledge on this. So poor Mackenzie, I will probably be asking her for things as we go through this.
No worries.
Thanks, Mackenzie. Jackie?
Hi, I'm Jackie Smith, and I work at Unitigo Elementary, again, as the academic intervention person. And as I think we all can see, a lot of our students can read fluently, beautifully, but they cannot comprehend. So we really need to have as many things in our bag of tricks to try to figure out how we can bridge that gap so that they can actually comprehend everything they're reading.
Yes, Jackie and I talk a lot about this all the time. Thanks, Jackie. Marjorie?
Hello, sorry. I'm AIS in Franklin and always interested in anything that can help our kids.
And I think this will, so hopefully we'll get a lot out of it. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Kelly, last but not least.
Hi, friends. As many of you will know, I'm from Unitigo, and I tend to be the more rogue kind of friend. So I'm here as inspired by TikTok, because I see a lot of teacher talk that references the science of reading, and I guess I'm really trying to settle in my head exactly what the science of reading is, because like I feel like I've been around this journey for a while, so everything old is new again. So I'm trying to see what is kind of being repackaged and presented as the science of reading that we already knew, and maybe refreshing myself on those things that I already knew and forgot and haven't been using. And
no, I think that's a great point. I feel like a lot of us, a lot of it will probably be familiar to most of us. And then some of it's like oh yeah, like that does make sense. So just like putting it together kind of thing. Thanks, Kelly. And sorry, I forgot Aaron because he wasn't on my screen on the other page. So
I was just going to jump in and say, hey, Kate, I should probably introduce myself. So I am Aaron Sorensen. I am the director of the Catskill Regional Teacher Center. And I just threw in a chat to Corey, I believe it was, that my job really is to support all of you guys. I think I have the world's best job because there is no punishment. There's no follow-up. All I do is support teachers. So let me know if there's other things that you would like programming on or support areas of support, whatever we can do to support you. And I am a special ed teacher by training, and kind of been reading along, so I might have comments here or there.
Thanks, Aaron. All right, so I'm going to just share my screen again, and we can kind of get started with
Kate, you're muted.
All right, well, let's try this again. I don't know why it keeps defaulting back to that, but thank you, Mackenzie. All right, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, thank you. Okay. All right, so I had put this in the PDF that I had sent out, but I have loved this book. I've told many of you that are participating in this, you know, to read it and that I loved it. The biggest piece was that it had real life applications. I feel like the strategies that I read about, the ideas, the fact that they brought it back to a teacher at the end always helped me to see why I could use it. And then kind of like Kelly Hafley was saying, you know, some of this science of reading is, it seems, I feel like a little extreme at times and a little bit intense, but I feel like this book allowed me to embrace the science of reading and not, and I liked what Carolyn said about how do we bring in the balance. I still love my Faunus and Pinnell, but I have to figure out how to incorporate this in there. So this was just a quick piece looking at really the buzzwords throughout this book and things that are kind of going on right now in the world of literacy, the balanced reading, science of reading, reading wars, Scarborough's rope, the meaning making process, and the terms phonological and phonemic awareness. So just looking at this, I just wanted to talk real quick. Did any of these stand out to anyone? Was there anything you felt like, yes, I've done a lot of PD in this, or, you know, I've really read a lot about this, or were there some that were like, I've never really heard of this? If you guys just wanted to share out, if there's anybody who thought like something was really stood out to you from those topics.
Well, I noticed that the letters training that we did, I've only done 1 year of letters training, but a lot of that is coming back through this book, especially with the parts of reading, the processing systems, the phonological, the meaning, and the context, and then the orthographic added in there as well. But that was exactly what the letters training has told us as well. How many people who are in this book study have gone to the letters training? I know Hafley, you did, right? Kindergarten did?
Yeah, kindergarten and first grade at Unity-Go did it. The year
Okay.
of COVID shutdown.
Corey, has BOCES?
Yeah, so BOCES did train people. I'm not one of them.
Gotcha.
So I'll be honest, I have no idea what any of those things were.
Okay. Well, no, that's good. I mean, I feel like when I first really started looking into one of my good friends at work she is diehard science of reading, and she's a phenomenal teacher. And she talks to me about it, especially at the beginning of last year. And I just was like, I'm sorry, I don't believe anything you're saying right now. So I had to change my mindset completely. Did Franklin go to the letters training at all?
No, we just got the Wonders curriculum for our K3. So we are trying to deal with that right now. And then I know Christine Newell comes in and she has been pushing letters training for us, but we're trying just to do one thing at a time so we don't drown.
Right. And Wonders, that's interesting because I've worked with Wonders before, and I don't know how science of reading aligned it is. Corey, does BOCES use Wonders or F&P?
So we have Faunus and Pinnell, and I'm just going to speak for myself, not anyone else. But I'm not sure that that's that's not used. I mean, it's there if we needed it, but it's not currently in the curriculum.
Gotcha. Okay. So it seems like we have a mix of different things because at Unitigo, sorry, I feel like I'm speaking for all of us, but we use the CKLA, the skills strands, and the knowledge strands. And Mackenzie Walton is using that too, right?
Yep. Yep. And I think after this year, most of our teachers will have both parts of letters done, like K through 5. Almost everyone. So I've had both parts, and I think there might be maybe one more cohort to go next year with one part of it, but the majority have had both.
Okay. Sorry, Elizabeth, go ahead.
I just wanted to say that ONC BOCES also offers letters training. But I'm not a part of that. But I did want to say about Wonders. I don't know if people are familiar with Ed Reports. So Ed Reports will show you how curriculum is aligned, and you can do kind of a cursory look, or you can do a pretty deep dive. And so Wonders comes out very high for pretty much everything. So it's if you look at Ed Reports, Wonders, they show that it is aligned to the science of reading. CKLA is a little bit more so, though, I think, in that regard. But so Ed Reports is a good thing to look at. I'll find that website and drop it in the chat.
That would be great. Thank you.
So my question, and I guess it was part of my motivation for signing up for this, because I did go through the letters training, which I felt was phenomenal. So I would recommend that to everyone. And I've been begging to get the second half of it. But what the letters training did was sort of educate teachers, like what are some best practices. It gave me a lot more background knowledge and things that I had forgotten from college or they hadn't even taught me in college. So I guess my thing now is I feel like the science of reading is sort of that also. So I get a little bit confused when people like quote unquote say we're doing the science of reading, because I feel like it's more of a like a teacher's mindset and the bag of tools in the teacher's tool bag that we can take and apply and use and as a way to interpret and carry out any module, any Wonders program, any program like that the science of reading is sort of like our skill set that, you know, like do a sports analogy, like what I work on in my front yard, right, at that basketball hoop, and then I take it to practice and I work with my team and I do a game. So like letters for me was my tool set that I was building in the front yard. And then I took it in and I used it to interpret and implement CKLA. So I guess that's what I want to get a better understanding of science of reading, if it is like that or like how it's a quote unquote program that I can implement.
Kelly, so I think that's so interesting that you said that, because I feel like I thought that too, and I've had different discussions with people, and I'm by no means an expert on this, but from what I've read, it's the body of research that's showing what are the best practices of teaching children how to read, and the practices that can help intervene when they get to third grade and above, and we're not explicitly teaching phonics, but then we go back and look at the interventions. But I have heard some people say, oh, we're doing the science of reading. And so I think there's a confusion. Yeah, I just feel like there's a confusion. Like somebody had said to me, oh, the Reading League is coming to our schools and they're teaching us the program of the science of reading. And from what I understand, it is not a program. It is the body of research that supports the best practices. So did everybody else feel like the introduction to this kind of gave them that mindset, or did you get something else out of it?
I think you just did a great job putting that into words for me, Kate. That was exactly.
Well, Kelly, I thought you did a great job of that too, because I was like, oh, that's exactly, I feel like when I think of this, that's what I think of. So
I think there was that confusion with letters too early on where, and still sometimes people thinking it's a program where, letters is the base. That's the education for us. More like you said, the best practices, teaching in the way of science of reading. But then what programs can we use to implement those best practices that letters teaches us? Because I listened to something recently, I think Louisa Moats, the one who created letters, mentioned that like so many teachers are being trained, but then they don't have a program that aligns, or they don't have the materials to implement it. So that's where there's still kind of
the disconnect is.
Yeah, disconnect. Thank you. Couldn't think of that word. But CKLA, I think you can really implement a lot of it. So it is nice.
yeah, I mean, so I've used Faunus and Pinnell, Wonders, Journeys, and then I have never taught CKLA, but I've watched it in practice in our district. And I think it just aligns so well to everything this book has said, other books that I'm reading right now. It's like, honestly, I wish my own child had that curriculum. At first I was like, what is this? But I really love it now. So, did anybody want to talk more about that, or you want me to keep going with the slides? That sound okay? Anybody have anything to add so far? Let's see what's next on this. Let's see. Okay, so I just kind of gave you a rundown. Can everybody hear me? I'm not muted, right? I'm good? Okay, thank you. A rundown of what each chapter will look like. I thought this just made it, just the readability, it's just so easy. It just kept the same format throughout each chapter. So again, another reason to love this book. And there's nothing there. What's happening? Oh, there it goes. And then we'll split up the book study just by, next time it'll be 2 chapters, another 2 chapters, and then we'll look at the last chapter, chapter 6, and their website. Was anybody able to look at the website at all, or did you see it and go check it out? So I'm going to talk about her, but she'll be fine with that. My friend Hannah is a special ed teacher at Unitigo, and I don't know if she has read this book, but she uses their website for a ton of different things. And to watch her and she's plenty versed in the science of reading, so she'll take the things on the website and use them. And I just watch her like, oh, I could do that. So they're just such great resources that you could take and adapt to anything. So it's really worth, I mean, if you wanted to look at it now, feel free, but we can get to that in the last week.
Where would you find that website address?
It is, if you type in the 6shifts.com, one of them takes you to like a sports website or something if you type it in wrong. And then let me see if I can just find it real quick.
Kelly, it looks like it's on page 160 in the back of the book.
Yeah, I feel like it's right in the back.
Yep, with capitals on each word.
I did create a shared drive if anybody's wanting that, and a lot of those resources are on that shared drive.
That'd be great. Thanks, Erin. We, like in our district, they have a list of power words, which I loved. I'm skipping way ahead now. But anyhow, those are on there. And we're using those in intervention. There's so many good things on there. All right, so let's see. I threw these 2 articles on there. I'm not sure if anyone had time to read these. I thought the one about the reading wars and the science of reading was great because it gave a quick rundown of the history of the reading wars. and really how we've gotten to this point. And then the article Hard Words by Hanford, that one was recommended, or it's recommended as a read, but it's also listed in the introduction of the book. And how like that article kind of sparked a lot of this work that's going on. Was anyone able to look at those yet or check those out? You know, in everyone's spare time, those are good things to read.
I was looking for the email right now that has all of those links because, you know, we get a lot of emails in a day and I don't know.
I know. You get a lot of emails from me.
It would have come from Kate Webb or from the Regional Teaching Center.
Erin couldn't find the one I sent, and Jackie found it at one point and sent it to me because I couldn't even find it in my sent mail. So I wonder if I can put it like a link to this.
There is a copy of it in your shared drive that I just put the link in the chat. So if you guys have gotten into that,
so we'll be able to get it from that.
There's articles related, there's data tracking sheets, downloads, and then slides. And so it would be in that slides folder. And feel free to add your own stuff. If you guys come up with articles that you would like to share, feel free to drop it into that, into the appropriate folder.
All right, so thanks, Erin. Sorry, I'm just gonna click away here. All right, so after reading, well, actually, I'm gonna go back one. Let's see if this will let me. Sorry. So I just wanted to look at these questions and then everybody can just kind of shout out. Why is it doing this? Sorry, guys. Can you see that okay?
It's not shared right now, Kate.
Oh my gracious. Okay, hold on, we're getting there. There we go. Okay. So just looking at the introduction section, I just wondered if anybody had any feelings or thoughts on the part about embracing the research and the balance, especially anyone who uses guided reading or leveled readers. This is where I had a really hard time. It's taken me a while to embrace the science and still feel like I can use the tools that I have without recreating. And I know some people have completely gotten rid of leveled readers.
I really appreciated like how upfront they were about kind of where they stood in the beginning. Like, and when you said embracing, like they literally said, you know, most importantly, I meant intentionally initiating conversations with those who take some issue with some of the ideas we hold most dear. And I just thought that it was just really nice to hear exactly kind of where they're coming from, but that they're also very open and they want to get to that balance to make it best practice, really. So I like that.
Yeah, I think it's being open-minded and trying to take on some new understandings and have it blend well with our old understandings of reading and how it's taught and how it's, you know, kids learn all that.
I think the standpoint teachers are coming from has a big impact on how they are interpreting this. Like I teach kindergarten in a rural district, which before last year didn't have pre-K. So I used to joke, literally anything I do is considered instruction. Like these kids can do nothing. You know, they came in total blank slates. So for me, I got used to the fact that sitting around and having a conversation for 20 minutes in the morning was good instruction for them, because maybe someone hadn't had a very literate conversation with them. So this book is, you know, bringing some justification to what I thought for a long time was just a joking way of me justifying being lazy. But it's giving me some validation there that I'm quite proud of. But, you know, AIS teachers who have just such a short window of time with kids, their take on what they're doing in that time is far different than mine, who I have all those extra minutes and little snippets of time where I could throw in a conversation, you know?
Callie, I love that you said that, because when we get to, we can talk about it now, but the chapter 1, did everybody see that dialogue cycle? That's also on the website. And I am no speech pathologist, so I went to our speech pathologist and I just think speechies are, I feel like, some of the smartest people I've ever spoken to. They amaze me with what they say. But so Winnie Slauson is our speech pathologist, and I went to her about this, and she was like, yes, this is good stuff. Like, if you can use this, and she explained it all to me, and, you know, all the different parts, and answered my questions. It's on page 30. And I printed it out and gave it to our MTSS team. And I said, like, just like Kelly said, you know, especially with our kindergartners, this is intervention. If we can talk about this after we do a read aloud, or, you know, you read a poem with them, or even if you're just walking up the steps, talking to them about their weekend, like if we can use this good stuff, that to me is intervention. So I don't know if anybody else saw this and thought like, oh, I do this, or I could do this better.
I think conversations are something that we lack in society anymore too. I mean, back, I think when a lot of us were young, we had more conversations in a day just with our parents and friends and stuff than a lot of these kids have in a week. And I think that's where we're breaking down. So these conversations, and these, just having a conversation that we think is, like Kelly was saying, oh, I think I was being lazy, but no, it's an integral part of learning the language, the words, the in-text, you know, all that. I think it's crucial.
Yeah, I mean, and I hope she won't care that I threw a name out there, but when I spoke to Winnie, that's exactly what she said. Like, this is good stuff. You know, this is what we need to do with these kids, is really be able to engage them and deepen the conversation.
And Kate, another part of that is also, I think a lot of times our kids don't feel listened to. And so when you're doing that conversation, you know, repeating and expanding what they say, some of them, especially when I get into like character traits, we have like, or feelings, happy, sad, mad, maybe frustrated. And that's kind of where it ends. And
right.
So you know, it allows not only, you know, for them to pick up the language, but also to feel validated for what they're feeling and thinking. But we can also, more invested. And we're also giving them maybe some words in their toolbox that, you know, even like in a character ed standpoint, you know, or a social situation, they can utilize.
Completely agreed. I just saw Susan mouth vocabulary, and I'm like, yes, that is our biggest obstacle sometimes.
At our high school level with the science, we shifted a long time ago from just giving the kids vocabulary to us focusing on using the vocabulary daily, regularly using it so they hear it in the proper context and they're hearing it repeated over and over again. So these words that are large or difficult or brand new that they have to break apart, we just keep using them to increase their familiarity with it, and their contact with it, to bring it as part of their everyday vocab. And there's so many times that one of the English teachers I work with, he regularly will talk about the same science vocabulary I am and share it with his kids in the class and be using it with them because he knows which vocab words we're going to be focusing on and we're going to be using. And so he purposely uses them in his class as well, so they get more and more exposure.
Right. So like almost like a planned intervention for them. That's great. And I'm taking that back to somebody who asked me, what interventions do they use in the high school? So thank you, because now I can let her know that's something they can do.
Well, I find too that the conversations, children want to be heard. They want to be listened to, and we do spend so much time with them. Those conversations are super valuable, but I have to say, likewise, sometimes it's so hard with our schedule. I always feel like we're rush, and we don't take the time enough to actually sit and have conversations with children. And I think we do need to take that extra time. They do need to know that they're valued, and we do need to build a vocabulary with them. So as hard as it is, I think it's time very well spent.
I completely agree. And that's what as in the intervention department in our school, I feel like that was when I read this and looked at this, the process, the dialogic conversation process, I just thought this is something we could do. And it, like Kelly said, it's almost validating, like that is such a huge piece of the meaning making process. So this was one of my favorite pages of this book. I felt like it really did validate what we do every day. Okay, I'm gonna keep going. Did anybody, I just thought it was so easy to read because of the way it was organized. Anybody else think that was helpful to them just to get through it? Did anybody see anything that stood out to them, like that they really appreciated that they put in there or will look forward to for the next few chapters?
Well, you just talked about that one visual aid there, but I think all of the charts and things they included were super helpful. I particularly like the high leverage instruction routine one. I had that flagged.
Yes, I completely agree. Did anyone else think that was helpful to have in there?
Which page was that on?
25.
Oh yeah, that was a good one.
Yeah, it just kind of chunks it up for you. So it's just right there when you have to refer to it.
I really liked,
Oh, no, go ahead, Mackenzie. Sorry.
I was just going to say, I like how they started and ended with a classroom, like that, that actual application and seeing the shift really. So I really like that part. And also the questions to reflect at the end, because I like to reflect. So it was just a good prompt.
Yeah, I just think this book is so well put together. So I don't have a lot bad to say about it, but the only other thing that I put on here, and I thought it was ironic, is the finding and giving grace, the emotionally taxing work of this. And I just attended my friend's college class, her first class, and she asked her students to give her grace, and she would give them grace, give each other grace throughout it, because this was a hard read for me in some ways. Some of the things I looked at and I was like, I just don't agree with this. I don't believe this. I mean, I've had to read a lot about this for me to really kind of see the light for some things. So I just thought that was a nice piece that they put in there. All right, so let's get into the meat of this. All right, so looking at chapter 1, any connections and thoughts about Mr. Tucker's second grade class? I liked that they started with this.
thinking that how nice that he starts his day reading a story to his class. That's the first thing that they did. They read independently, and then he immediately started the day with a read aloud. And I thought, golly, that's a great way to start the day.
I agree. I think that, I mean, to have kids come in, do their morning work a little bit, whatever, you know, that they have, but yet then gather together as a class to have a read aloud and then discuss it. That's what a great way to start a day.
Does anybody get to start their day like that?
No.
I call it a soft start. There's my, again, lazy girl justification. But I tell the kids that it's a soft start. Come in, talk to your friends. I usually have some sort of like low key, like coloring or something. Just sit and talk to your friends. And then, you know, I wander around and chit chat.
Kelly, have you ever read the book Purposeful Play?
Yeah.
Doesn't that start?
I've read a lot of articles. I'm not like a book person, so to speak.
Doesn't that start on purposeful or soft landing? So I feel like you're onto something. I feel like that's a real thing. It's not
it
just...
sure is.
Okay.
Oh, it
I'm like, that's
definitely
a real
is.
thing.
Yes, but typically
I will seek out anything to justify my laziness.
That soft starts the day.
I do think it's a real thing.
Yes, isn't it like STEM bins and quiet play when children first come in? A soft starts the day, and then you get into the academics.
I mean, it could go so far as one thing I read about kids after they finished breakfast, everybody in the building was allowed to go out on the playground. Like it was a Southern-based school where the weather allowed for that all year, but everyone got to go on the playground for like 10 minutes at the start of the day. Because for most kids, that's the most enjoyable thing they get to do. So they got to go do it first. I mean, who didn't they win over that day, right?
Right. I know. If you think about things like that, maybe we should start with a read aloud, or everybody should start with like a soft start. So while he was starting this, Mr. Tucker, and he started talking about his kids and what he saw with them when he moved into the group reading. Did anybody take anything out of that? When reading it, he said, or mentioned something about comprehension is decreasing or down, even though our kids can decode, which Jackie said when we first, introduced ourselves. Did anybody have any other takeaways or see that and think like, oh yeah, I say this all the time?
Yeah, because that is something we talk about all the time, Kate. I mean, we do. It's just something that pops up its ugly head on a regular basis.
And I think our school does, like the tier 1 gen ed teachers do a phenomenal job of the phonics and the CKLA skill strands, and our kids are great decoders. And then you think about like that meaning making process, and that's where I feel like it's like I'm kind of stuck, because I'm like, well, if you look at the data, they're not scoring low because they can't decode. Like, what do we do? What's that next step? What does the science of reading say about their comprehension?
Exactly.
I don't know if anybody else thought that.
There was there was the part of the book too that talked about early readers, and the decoding part, of course, is crucial. But you start thinking about some of those low level books, they're not as easy to have a deep conversation about. Some of those you can provide background knowledge and discuss that, but until they start getting into second grade, third grade, where you do have a higher level text, that's when the weakness started showing through with the reading comprehension. And until we start building that conversation and providing that vocabulary and just rich conversation about stories, we have to include that science piece to increase the comprehension with all of our readers.
and I know this is kind of plugging a different book, but I'm finishing the book, The Knowledge Gap, right now. Aaron just wrote the development of background knowledge. And has anybody read that book, The Knowledge Gap? It's amazing because it truly talks about, and I know I'm sound like I'm just lifting our school up here, but our gen ed teachers do some pretty amazing things. And it talks about that our kids are lacking in just general background knowledge. And if you go into Carolyn Christensen's first grade room and you look at the different, and I don't even know all of your curriculum, the knowledge strand, but what those kids can do, and I've gone into a second grade room and what they can talk to you about, and it's the science social studies piece, and this book is saying that's what our kids are missing. It's just so interesting to me to go from this book, The 6 Shifts, to that, because it connects so well, and it's that background knowledge. And I feel like that's where the CKLA balances that phonics. They provide the kids with the knowledge strand, which is building all of that. So I don't know if anyone has done any work with that or can speak to that more, like Carolyn and Kelly and Ashley.
Well, I was just going to kind of go off of that and talk about like with the listening comprehension and how helpful that is. Because like if they do in each of our lessons, at least in 3rd grade, there's a read aloud and a reading piece, and they are essentially the same information. But the read aloud is a much higher level, of course, with a ton more information than the reading that they do in their reader, the student reader. And when we do the listening first, then they're able to go to the reader and they're able to better understand when they're reading their student chapter. I feel like they're able to better have a better reading comprehension because they have that background knowledge that was just provided by the listening comprehension. So they connect really well to each other there.
I love that because I had written down, like on page 17, it talks about growing oral language and how that increases overall comprehension, which is why I feel like I talked about the Knowledge Gap book, because it's all connected. So it's just so connected. I have no other word for that. But did anyone else think about that or pick that out when they were reading this?
I think like Kelly had said earlier, like being reminded of things that we've learned before. I don't think I remembered how valuable listening comprehension is. Like Ash said, how ours is set up. And I can see in the classroom, the way we're doing the read aloud, and then they go into the reader and they're, but the idea of units, teaching a unit idea, building a particular set of vocabulary that can be used throughout that unit, domain specific. Those are pieces that, prior to CKLA, we did the Engage New York curriculum, where it was really all closed text reading. That was really what we taught in that program. So just to be reminded of how important listening comprehension is, and on page 20, I kind of put it in the note catcher too, talking about increasing with complex text. And it says, in fact, by 8th grade, nearly all reading comprehension differences between readers can be attributed not to differences in decoding, but in differences to listening comprehension. And I guess I forgot how important listening comprehension is.
And isn't it funny, Kelly, didn't you and Ashley and I just have a conversation about testing and how like there used to be a test on listening comprehension? Didn't we?
Yes.
We just talked about that.
Yeah. We read a passage aloud and then they took notes and then answered questions based on that. Yep.
Mm-hmm. And so the high leverage practice that was on here, like making the shift, isn't there one about using the interesting words and reading aloud? I thought that was like I think of this and I'm like, how do I put this into my everyday practice? The using interesting words, does anybody do that already? Like, is that something that's occurring within our curriculums?
I know, like, when I have some of my students, when we're reading passages, I have them read through it first and have them circle or underline any words that they're not quite sure about, or they're not, sure what the meaning is or how to pronounce them. And we go back and that we focus on those words.
And I feel like it's kind of going back to what Kenny said about the use of vocabulary through multiple, like through the multidisciplines, like multiple subjects and areas, and how working as a team, knowing what your curriculum is and sharing that with your team is another form of intervention or a way of, I would feel like that would be a different, like high leverage practice.
Absolutely.
Is everybody doing this?
I use some stuff with the using the interesting words. So we do a lot of that with our vocab. So I have a self-contained third grade. My kids are in third grade, but their reading is at like a kindergarten, first grade level. So with Wonders, the third grade material is extremely high. So we've gone to the WonderWorks. And then I do a lot with the vocab and just expanding on that. And so in a lot of our readings, we pull out vocab words. I have a picture that might go with a vocab word. We talk about the definition, and then we create sentences, like a sentence, because I found when I asked them to use a vocab word in a sentence to tell me what it means, they didn't know.
Right. They couldn't apply it.
That I also have speech and OT. I've worked it into my schedule, so they push into my classroom to try to help that as well. So we try to do a lot with like synonyms and other things to help just build that, and it's improved. But I want to, I put it in the note catcher, expand on that more and have like posters up in my room. So if we come across another word that is a synonym for one of the vocab words or something that they don't know, that they have that visual also in the classroom and continue to build on it, because I feel like my students need a lot of repetition and need
those anchor charts.
If they don't have that, then we forget that we've talked about it.
Yeah, I think having those anchor charts and having that there, I've watched students turn to look at an anchor chart, and if the teacher has taken it down, they're like, wait a minute, I've used that before. Like, I know I need that there. That's, it's helpful to them. Anybody else with like the vocab and things like that? Because I feel like that's something that I feel like that's a common topic we've all kind of talked about and how we can use that.
Okay, the only thing I'm kind of stuck with is for every lesson we have Ash, like 12 to 15 vocab words that is put in there.
Yeah. So yeah, because there's a ton. And of course it tells you to like preload with a lot of them. But I mean, to be honest, I don't do all of them. I pick a couple because it's just overloading them. Before we even start and they can't do all those. What I tend to focus on is after the lesson, there's a specific word work that has one word that we focus on for the day, and you use it like within a sentence. So I tend to do that, and I kind of don't, because I agree, Kelly, it's like way too much when they give you 12 or 15 words at the beginning.
And that's kind of where I was wondering with the interesting words, is it more
right.
Exposure, like you say, I say, so that we notice that word and then we notice it in our reading? Or is it actually breaking it down to like what we do with that one word at the end, not only just being able to read it, but use it and apply it into sentences? So that's one question, vocabulary is how much is too much? Like, is it more so exposure and then get the bang out of your butt? Like the one that we focus on tends to be a not necessarily domain specific. It's a general word that they would see and hear in other places. So that was just kind of a question that came up when I got into that part is, how to build that rich vocabulary, but at the same time not to overwhelm.
Right, like that cognitive load piece. Did anybody else think of that? I don't know if I have like an answer for that. But I mean, it's a great question. I know, because I understand exactly what you're saying. Did anyone else think of that, or how they would handle that within their setting?
With our department, what we sat down, like I said, when we shifted from just doing vocab to more of a focus on using it regularly, we had too much. There was way too many vocabulary terms, and we couldn't expect them to do it all. So we focused on because we're in the sciences specifically, what are some science terms that really matter throughout, that interconnect, that we can all use. And then we picked a few of the most important from each unit to add in as well. So we didn't have 20 vocab words. We had, 5 words that we use, all of us use throughout their learning process in the different grades, and then 2 or 3 content specific for each unit as we did it. But we had to sit down together and determine, what do they need the most? What will be the most helpful?
So kind of like a vertical or horizontal alignment between that.
Yeah, we do. We try a lot of the vertical aligning between because we're mostly grade level, but we intermingle.
Does anybody else, I know what Unitigo is kind of getting into right now, but BOCES, Franklin, Walton, anything, Elizabeth with ONC, is vertical and horizontal alignment of like academic vocabulary a big push right now?
I wouldn't say vocabulary. I have one district that's looking at vertically aligning their ELA standards. But I think, people are talking about vocabulary, but it's sort of hit or miss, if that makes sense. But I agree with Ken that, really it would make more sense for people to help kids make those connections by bringing up that material in so many different contexts, instead of like, I'm in my science class, now I'm just shifting my brain in my math class. And that's really not how the world even works. Everything is embedded.
No, I completely agree. I feel like that the interdisciplinary piece plays a major role in kids really gaining an understanding of all of that. Anybody else want to jump in on that?
I've actually haven't heard of that term, vertical and horizontal alignment with vocabulary. But I think constantly we come back to vocabulary in like our data team meetings at grade levels. Like, how can we embed this more? How can we get at those deficits in a better way? So I'm gonna look into that, because I hadn't heard that term. Just that's something you said that a lot of schools are doing, that vertical and horizontal alignment.
I feel like I've heard it more with standards, like Elizabeth had mentioned. I don't know if anybody has worked on that, but when as somebody who works with K-5, I know like Mackenzie, you do, Jackie does. It's interesting to me how different vocabulary can be from grade to grade, or even our expectations of kids, or like the word passages or text, or reading this excerpt. They're all like, wait, what? What's a passage? Even that vocabulary is so different for them. And it can increase, but again, I look at Carolyn, tell us some of the things you do in your knowledge strand. Like, what are you doing right now? Because it's amazing to me how these kids know this.
Currently, we're using some of the Little Thinker units. Right now, I'm doing light and sound. So today we were talking about the properties of matter. And tomorrow we'll do an experiment with matter and list the properties that we're finding with that piece of matter. But we do, we just did the surface of the Earth unit, so we have all the vocabulary to go with that. I don't know if anybody else is familiar with the little thinker units, but they are incredible. Science and social studies. If you're not using them, you might want to look into them. They're on Teachers Pay T-shirts, and the school district has purchased them for us to use. And I know kindergarten's using them as
Yeah, I
well.
was like, Ruth found them at the beginning of last year, and they are phenomenal. And
they
seem-
align right with the knowledge strand.
No, not with the knowledge strand specifically, but they do align with the social studies and science standards that New York
science
City.
standards.
Yeah.
The next standards.
That's what I'm wondering, like, so with like our, like I say our, but I mean like Unitigo or anybody else who's doing this, they're the K1s putting in such heavy, it seems like heavy vocabulary, but the second graders who come to me talking about the War of 1812 and these things, and I'm like, holy cow. But I'm thinking when they get to high school with Kenny or, these high school teachers, it's like, will that be, like, what will we see from that? Maybe there won't be such a vocabulary gap there. Does anybody else think that?
We took a look at our listening and learning strand, Kate, and met with second grade and actually compared the units that we're doing so that there is that vertical alignment as they travel through school. So, the human body, for example, is a unit that we do in first grade, and then second grade builds on that with additional vocabulary. So we send them to second grade with a good background knowledge of the human body. So now the next step, of course, is to look at which listening and learning strands can we delete, which maybe are not so important, and then we can fill in with more of these little thinker units, which they're much more first grade appropriate and K appropriate compared to some of the listening and learning strands. Both have great vocabulary, but the little thinker units have anchor charts and experiments, good hands-on activities, a review material of the day, checking for understanding every day with what's been taught. So it's just kind of it's a neat resource to use.
And that's awesome, because I feel like that's what I saw when I went into second grade, is what these kids could do with the human body. I know we're getting off topic here, but I feel like it does go back into the vocabulary piece, and what they could tell me about it. I was just blown away, and you can see how that has been built K1 too. Does Franklin, BOCES, anybody else want to throw anything out there about like vocabulary or any sort of vertical alignment? Does Wonders, I think Wonders spirals with the grade levels. Uh-oh. All right, well, we can move on then. That's so the last part of this was, the 4 misunderstandings. I feel like we've talked about a lot of those. Did anybody have anything more they thought about the 3 processing systems, spoken language and written language being 2 different things? The reading comprehension and beginning reading text means that reading comprehension is on track. Now, this is where F&P, I can see there being a problem, because when you read an F&P benchmark book at a level B through really an E, there's not a whole lot there. So if they can answer a question about, what are 4 things the little girl played with, and they can look at the picture and tell you, it's like, okay, they're doing pretty good. But really, do we know, when they're having a conversation, what they're comprehending, if they're able to retain any of the vocabulary? So that stood out to me. Did anyone have anything they wanted to add about those 4 misunderstandings?
I remember thinking the same thing, that the questions at the end of like a benchmarking book are not really an effective tool for assessing their comprehension, because you can like kind of miss one and still do like your percentage can be acceptable.
Right. And I mean, unless I feel like they miss all of them, then there's a real big red flag, but typically they don't. So
yeah, if
anybody
they just say
else?
something about the book, we're like, yep, sounds good.
Yep.
And I think the nice thing, that's what's so awesome about CKLA is, like you were saying, how the units really build on themselves over the grade levels. So like the common example of, a student who knows everything, is like an expert on baseball, and so he aces that test, yet the student who normally has the higher comprehension scores didn't know anything about baseball, so he doesn't get the test right at all. So just, I feel like we're building those blocks of like going back to like Scarborough's reading rope with the language comprehension. We're building that background knowledge and all of those pieces with these units carrying over so that they can have that more successful reading comprehension. So it's not just a quick, assessment on one specific topic, like Kelly was saying. We know what their background, we can kind of get a sense of what their background knowledge is because it's being taught in the grades below, as opposed to not knowing what they are or aren't exposed to, and there being that deficit of some students having much richer vocabulary and background knowledge and those not. So I think CKLA is really good for that.
And I like how you brought that back, Mackenzie, because I feel like then looking at these high leverage practices, even if you're not using CKLA, there's so many things on that chart, pages like 25 through 26, that could be brought into any curriculum and look at it through a different lens to be able to pull it out and see what you could do to put some of that science in there or into what you're doing, or just really the best practice piece. So thank you for bringing that back. So sorry, I was just reading some of this chat. So last I had just put, does anybody have any other thoughts or connections you had regarding chapter 1? And then I think we'll be done for the night if there's no more for that.
I think the most major takeaway statement for me was on that one chart that I referred to, the repeating, when we repeat what they said, because we do that a lot with the littles, and I do it a lot because I got a couple of friends whom I know you know well, Kate, that
and I can picture it in my
us
head
went
right
to
now.
PE, and us are talking to that guy, so I'm always repeating, oh, we went to PE, but how just repeating what they've said is going to help build the comprehension for the whole group. Like when we're having a group discussion, even if it's about the Ninja Warrior awesomeness we have going on, just repeating it like, oh yeah, we all saw him do that cartwheel the other day, or like that, the idea of the repeating their phrases is helping to build their comprehension.
Right, and repeating it in a correct way so they're not practicing error every time.
Us is going to eat dinner soon.
Yep. All right, us. We're going. But right, I mean, that's really being able to model that for them. But Kelly, I think that's so important. And I feel like, in talking with our speech pathologist, that she was like, yes, do this. This is good. So I felt like it validated this for me. Anyone else have, I like how Kelly kind of ended that, like something she took away. Anyone else have a takeaway? Thanks, Kelly, for starting that.
I just wanted to share like a little anecdote that it really hit home to me, the piece about context, because I thought suddenly about when I was younger and that song, Madonna's song Material Girl came out. And I didn't know what the word material meant in that context, but I had read the Wizard of Oz series. and there was a patchwork girl in that. So I thought Material Girl was about a girl that was made out of different kinds of material. I mean, because that's the only context I had for it. So when I saw the video, I still was like, what is this? And so that really hit home about how important, you know, learning words is not as, you know, you can't just do that in isolation. You have to be able to have context behind it too. And that really, I mean, it's like that memory came out of nowhere from reading that chapter. And I was like, oh, right. Yeah.
Yes.
So that was really.
No, I completely agree. And I'm working with some ESL students this year who will say to me, like, I don't really know what that means. Or is that this? And I have to, you know, describe it to them or go back. And it kind of reminds you, okay, then I need to help them. We need to do some more with enrichment of our vocabulary and reading. Somebody said the other day, like, how did she phrase it? Like different, just rich texts. That's not the word I'm looking for right now, but you know what I mean. Even read alouds with pictures. Like I go back and I'm thinking, oh, this could be good for my friends. So anybody else have anything to add at the end? All right, well, thank you all so much. I think this was great. We'll work on chapters 2 and 3 next time, and it's same situation. I'm just gonna kind of go with the reflection. Oh, there's the baby. Sorry, I got that. I can see him. So we'll just go with the reflections at the back of each chapter. And side notes and connections to your classroom. So I really appreciate everyone being here, and I hope you got something out of tonight in these chapters. And email if you need anything. Thanks, guys. Have a good night.
Ashley, is he making baby noises? Can we hear the baby noises?
Can we see him? Can you hold him up for us? Is this allowed?
Yeah. Say hi.
Oh my goodness.
He just ate, so he's good.
Happy.
He's content for the moment. He's been having these witching hours that last like 2 hours a night of just screaming and we can't, like, nothing works. So he just got him to calm down and he fed him. So
Daddy did it too. Wow, nice job.
Yeah.
Rhino.
Well, yeah, you know, after mom pumps, he can do it.
Well, you know, whatevs.
Yeah.
But we'll give him credit, I guess.
So cute.
He's so sweet, Ash.
Oh,
He's all martini though. Sorry.
They always are. So is she.
She's got that blonde
Ashley,
hair.
I have
now,
never
which
told you
helps.
this, but I see her in the hallway and she reminds me so much of my daughter. And I'm like, oh my gosh, she is the cutest thing.
Kelly, I heard she came flying into your room the other day.
I don't know. I'm on solo time here. I haven't been in my room this week.
No. When she told Kay she was gonna beat him up or something.
Christ, those two are hilarious. She's the bigger, badder cousin, which is
that would
funny
be all
younger.
martini, Kelly. That's the martini.
She's so sweet.
I know. Well, good luck, Ash.
Look at us all
Thank
just
you.
Googling the camera.
I know. We're just
like,
sitting here
oh,
looking
the
at the baby.
It's so great.
Say bye.
Bye, everyone. Have a good night.
Bye. Good night.
Bye.